go. Namaste, everyone. It is me, Nina Sachs from Yoga Awakening Africa. Today, I am joined with the beautiful Ronel. Ronel is based out in Glen Ken area. Yes, Cape Town.
That's correct.
That's
Yes, that's
correct.
correct.
Welcome, Ronel. It is so lovely to be chatting with you, and we're going to be chatting all about your trip to Nepal.
Yay! I'm so
Yay!
excited to share with everybody.
Exactly. So before we get there and we kind of like give everyone an insight as to kind of like your journey that was, how did we actually meet years back when and how did our story begin?
I think we met in a yoga workshop, and we have mutual friends as well, with Marion and then Juanita as well. And I think then we met at a few workshops. And when I was preparing for the meeting, I thought, about we meeting at the workshops, and I thought, but do people still have workshops? I mean, even apart from online workshops, when it hasn't been for a long time that I've seen. There used to be workshops like every weekend in Cape Town was packed with workshops. There was a choice. Yeah, I don't know what happened to workshops, but we met at a workshop.
Good, lovely. And I kind of like, I know we kind of like we probably became friends from there in contact. And then I know you studied, I mean, you obviously were teaching yoga and doing yoga, and then you went into aromatherapy. And I remember coming to you for just the most beautiful massage. And I mean, that was years ago. And then again this year when I visited you, when I was down in Cape Town. So you pretty much retired from your day job in the Navy, which is a whole nother
Yeah,
story and a whole nother story we need to get to at one of these days. And then you kind of like went into yoga and aromatherapy. I know there was also a little bit of aerobics kind of like in the earlier Navy days. Is that right? And now you're pretty much fully yoga and aromatherapy.
that's right. Yes, I started off in the aerobics industry in fact, in 1980. So when it was very Jane Fonda and Go for the Burn and yeah, the headbands and all the gears and all that. And I always had these two careers, in the Navy and then the physical or the teaching side. And then it was a slow transition. It wasn't one day I was in the Navy and the other day I was in aromatherapy. I started about 10 years before retirement, just studying in the one field and then gradually building up a client base until I could retire. So if anybody's watching me and wanting to retire, make sure you build up a client base first in your new career before you go.
And that is such an important point that you raise. It's kind of like very often what we see is, people do a yoga teacher training course, they give everything up and think they're going to go just straight into teaching, and they haven't actually sussed it out. They haven't, like you're saying, created a client base, because with yoga, we know it's very up and down and up and down. So that's such a good point that you raise. And kind of like with that, I know you love to travel. It's also in your bones. I think that's probably why we get on so well. So tell me kind of like why Nepal? Why there again? Yeah, tell me kind of like how that came about.
So my life has been about opportunities, and this opportunity arose of a lady called Fran Sibritz, who runs a little studio in Somerset West, was advertising a trek to Nepal. And there was absolutely, Nepal was not on my bucket list at all. I just thought, okay, it's an opportunity. The time is right. It's after COVID, haven't traveled for 2 years, itching to go again. Why not Nepal? And so it was with no expectations, no nothing. I didn't even. I actually thought, like many people after going to Nepal, that Nepal is part of India, and it's not realizing it's a different country. There are no Indians in Nepal. So
Japanese.
it was yeah, it was an opportunity, and it was one of the bucket list moments in my life. Yeah, it just turned out amazing. Just
And I love how you say that. It's often because often we have like places or countries that we have on our bucket list that we want to see for whatever reasons they are. And then sometimes we just get thrown not quite a curveball or kind of like a side angle, but an opportunity, like you're saying, arise
yeah.
to come, and we take it, and then we realize it's actually something that we really needed right then. It's kind of like the divine forces were just directing you towards that. And I think that's when we always have like our greatest, I don't know, maybe greatest awakening is not quite the right phrase, but we just have a sense of depth and insight, something that we just needed to learn at that point in time from that. Because kind of like one of the questions I was going to ask you is kind of like, what expectations were you going on this retreat with? And you're saying there were no expectations. Like I didn't go with expectations. And it's funny you say that, because often when I travel, I don't have expectations either. Like I just want to travel. I just want to go. There's not really a big purpose. I just sometimes feel drawn to a place and I let happen what happens. So kind of like going with an open mind, just being in the space. What kind of like was the reality that you realized happened on this retreat? Because with Fran, it was a yoga-based retreat. Is that right? So tell us how that all worked.
Yes, it was very much yoga based. So we stayed about 200 kilometers from Kathmandu in a town called Pokhara. And if you've been to Rishikesh, it's like the Rishikesh of Nepal. It's very touristy. A lot of people go there to start their trekking out. And so there are a few things, and I actually wrote them down, so I'm going to gaze down as we speak, that really hit me that about Nepal that set it apart. Yes, and it was yoga based. So we did yoga twice a day and then the trekking in between. The first thing that really struck home for me about Nepal was how kind they are to the animals. They and it's such a big difference to India, where the animals are not abused, but they just look after themselves, pretty much like the sentiment is here in Africa as well. Not intentional cruelty, but the animals, they look after themselves, which on a certain level I suppose is right. But the animals, even the street dogs, are fed, and cardboard boxes get put out for them at night, and some of them are even given blankets or little old jerseys to wear so that they don't sleep at night, and all the animals are really, really looked after. And that is
an amazing thing when we travel and we pick up in a certain area that there's such a big shift of how something operates. And like with animals, it's a big one. So kind of like growing up in South Africa, you do see the street dogs, you see, animals around. When I went into like Tanzania, there was a little bit not really nice, ways of treating animals. In Mozambique, it is shocking. So it is so beautiful to hear how, again, like you're seeing, like in India, there wasn't. It's not like there wasn't much care, but animals were animals in a sense. And where you're saying in Nepal, they were actually really looked after, maybe on a very basic level. Like there's this like a heart connection, maybe something a little deeper, where there's more of like, okay, maybe an animal also has a spirit and it has feelings and sensations, maybe acknowledging that. Whereas kind of like often where we live in Africa, that's just not there. An animal's just an animal.
Yeah, that is absolutely true. We were staying, after, so from Pokhara, we hiked up into the Himalayas, and so I can't say how much kilometer, maybe about say 12 or 20 kilometers up into the mountains. We stayed at a farm stay, and they had a beautiful dog called Lucy. Lucy had her own room in the house where she slept, and so it's very difficult to get there by car. It's very expensive. There are jeeps, available to hire, but none of the residents there they've got property, but they don't have cars because they don't need to. They don't want to leave the mountains. And he was explaining to me how he found her during COVID, and he hired a jeep and he took her down to the nearest vet, which was like 2 hours drive down, hiring a jeep, had her spayed and sterilized and inoculated, had to rent a place in a hotel to stay for 2 or 3 days until she was well enough, and he took her back up the jeep again. So that's and they are not rich people, but that's the kind of empathy that they have for their animals and their love. And the words of, and I think it was Mahatma Gandhi that said that how a nation's
animals.
yes, how they treat the little ones like animals is an indication of what the quality of the nation is like. So that really, really struck me. The second thing was that people aren't rich there, but 95% of the people in Nepal own property. They own their own property. They have a little, so it ranges from a townhouse to a little farm stay in the mountain, which is what that's their retirement, is wanting to retire in the mountains. So, it could be the smallest little dwelling, which in our words might be like a little shack. And you do see some shacks, but there will be a lovely garden around the shack. And even if there's a small garden, there will be vegetables in the garden. The father might have a motorcycle repairing shop in the back of the house. The woman of the house might have a little shop in the front of the house. The daughter of the house will have maybe like a beauty salon upstairs. The son of the house will do something else. So they all own property, or 95%, and they all work. They work for themselves, which is such a thing that, if we can just get off our butts and instead of waiting for big organizations like to come to us, or the state to give us grants, just do it ourselves. And there's hardly, I saw two beggars the 3 weeks that I was in Nepal.
And it's so amazing, Ronel, how that is actually so empowering to people. So no matter how menial the job is, or what it is that you're doing, or how many clients or customers you have, but the fact that you actually have a purpose, and your purpose is to, if it is to do hairstyling or braiding or whatever it is, or to be repairing motorbikes, or whatever, growing vegetable seedlings, whatever the story is. But to have something that you wake up every day to do is really so empowering. And I think that's also then uplifting. And instead of people just standing there with their hands out saying, like, help me, I need, you need to help me. But actually saying, actually, I can help myself. And when we shift that mindset, it's such a big thing.
It is. It really, and get out of that victim mode. I think the biggest thing with me that hit me was living in harmony, just with harmony with nature. They rely on nature to eat. Living in harmony with the animals, and then also living in harmony with their neighbors and religions. There are 3 very big religions practiced there. It's Hinduism, Christianity, which I didn't realize, and then of course Buddhism. And everybody gets on. Nobody is picking on the other one. We were there during the elections, and all the parties. There must have been about 12 parties that takes part in a procession. They all ride together on motorbikes as one, and they each have their own little placard up, but they're all one group, and it's quite festive. And that's how they live.
Seeing the EFF and the DA and things like that, protesting together. You just won't see that here. So it's amazing how different countries are so different. And it's lovely like that when you went on this, I don't know if I want to call it a pilgrimage, but on this travel adventure, you weren't, you weren't going to see like what is the political state, of Nepal. What is, what is the humanitarian way of dealing with animals there? It's kind of like these are things that you just noticed and picked up, and there was a resonance there with regards to how a country like that is doing and operating.
Absolutely. But it was actually a pilgrimage, and which I'm not quite sure how we're doing for time, but which brings us maybe to the biggest thing that I experienced there, and that was so over a couple of days we hiked up to our highest point, which wasn't that high. It was just under 3,000 meters. It wasn't very much high, to a mountain called Panchasi. Panchasi overlooks the Annapurna mountain range, which the one that is the trek that you did. Yeah, so it's the opposite of Annapurna, Panchasi. And so this place, Panchasi, is a place where some of the verses of the Rig Veda were composed. And I met a person there, a man there, a Canadian, who came there as a young man and studied anthropology and studied ancient scriptures. And this is what he studied, found, and he published 2 books. I was very, very fortunate. He gifted me with it too, so I'm going to hold it up.
Oh
So
wow.
that's the one.
There we go. Rig Veda, Annapurna, lovely. And it's such a beautiful range, Annapurna, because I hiked there a couple of years ago, 5, 6 years ago. And it just
It's
has
amazing.
a sense of essence and mysticism about it. Let's see the other book there, Ronel.
So this is what he addresses. Can you see?
Okay, so
Okay,
something about nature and Himalayan womanhood.
the womanhood. Yeah. So the people that live there are called the Gurung. Gurung. They are the descendants of Mongolians and Tibetans. And so this place, Panchasi, is seen as a divine feminine symbol. So, or the place where the divine feminine's lap is. They call it a lap, but I think it might be the whole pelvic region, because the mountains are shaped like like the genitals, like that,
Like vulva in a sense. It's kind of like circular, but not quite circular. But it is a beautiful range like that. So if you think of like a woman's genital areas, it is very similar to that. So I can understand
yeah.
how it would be related, on kind of like mystical way or whatnot, to the feminine, the divine. So yes, so tell me kind of like what else you picked up from that, because when we go into the feminine and the divine, it opens up some interesting
It
ideas.
does. It absolutely does. So it was this belief in combination with the Rig Veda, then that this verse in the Rig Veda. I'll take a photo afterwards and send you, because it's quite a long verse, and it's like the Rig Veda. It's not easily, doesn't always make sense if you read it. It's just like words translated, but you really have to think about what it means. So this is still. It's a town, like it might be about 10 or 12 houses there in Panchasi. We stayed at a place called the Happy Heart Hotel, but we were the only people there. It was like you would walk back in time, and the higher you walk to Panchasi, the more you become aware that something is very, it's like eerie and spooky. It's not this, I would have thought the
Warm,
feminine, I
fuzzy,
didn't know. Sorry,
not like this
say again.
warm, fuzzy, kind
Nope.
of like
It was
light, and it was a little bit
it was
more.
dark. It was uncomfortable, and it ties in with our conversation that we had the other day. The spiral down into the dark side. It felt like that. There were no other people there. It looks like those houses were abandoned. I don't know. It was, the washing was hanging outside, but it was like really eerie and spooky. And we stayed in this hotel, but must have been about, I don't know, at least 500 or 600 years old. It was an old building. So the place is run by these three women called the Didis, and then the Canadian chap. I might just mention his name because it's rude of me to talk about
Emma not mention his name. That would
yes,
be
and I actually didn't even. That's really bad of me. I didn't. I will. I will. Ooh,
we can put it. We can always put it in the notes.
I'll put it. Yeah, yeah. His name is Gareth. His name is Gareth. Okay. Gary Miller. Gary Miller. So Gary married one of these women, but she asked him to marry because it's a matriarchal society. And then once a year, the Hindus have a pilgrimage that we walk. They walk up to Panchasi, to the sort of to the vagina, if for the lack of a better word, the center of the vulva thing. I didn't realize that fully beforehand, that it was so significant in feminine divine.
So it's not like you went on this pilgrimage thinking that you now wanted to explore your feminine side or feminine divine, that, you were, that this was a pilgrimage to, to whatever, balance, bring awareness to. You kind of just went on this adventure, and all of a sudden this is actually, where you're drawn into. And I suppose everyone has different expectations, and you're just saying you noticed that there was like a depth in this journey and through the places that you were
yes,
hiking and traveling and staying at.
Absolutely. So Fran didn't say that, you're like you say, you're going on this pilgrimage you needed to find it yourself. So from the hotel that we were staying up to the summit, it's about 4 kilometers of steps, and it leads through an orchard forest. Yeah, full of a tree orchard. It's called the Tree Orchard Trail as well. It's really beautiful. And she invited us to, as you walk up, you need to look at your breath and then look at your heart and see if there's a fire or something that comes up for you. So you can decide what it is that you would like to find out, for the pilgrimage. Try and find it out yourself. And the whole time I was going up the mountain, I was thinking, I need to let go of all my SHIT. I need to let go. I need to let go of this. Because there's a lot of, we all have them, unresolved things in our lives, people that we haven't forgiven, etc. And it becomes eerier and like mistier. The mist actually comes and it's cold and it becomes quiet. So then we were a group of 10. Then you start to walk on your own. And then I got a little bit lost and I got off the path. And then eventually we got to the top. And this is where the weirdness really started, because by then I was beginning to feel a little bit, I needed to go to the bathroom because I want to get rid of my and I was feeling queasy. And we had a little ceremony up there where we lit some candles, and we could say our intention, what we wanted to do. There are several places on top of the mountain there that depicts various areas of the body, and one of them is a meditation cave, which in previous years, but like hundreds of years ago, the mystic men would go up there to try and find enlightenment, and they would be so harsh on themselves. They would lock themselves in this little cave, and then they have a choice. They either starve of hunger, or they become enlightened and they can, I don't know, float through the bars or anything. The last person that lived there was so desperate, he lost his mind and he decapitated himself. So I know it's dark, and then on the stone floor of the cave, you can still go in and you can place a candle and you can meditate. So on the stone floor, it's almost like the stones are in this form of a man and with his head lying to the side. So I don't know if that's the truth, the story, but you know how legends go, there's always a grain of salt with them. When I got to this cave, just being interesting as well, it was like there's a wall in front of me. I couldn't enter it. So I thought, okay, you know what, this is not for me. I didn't feel comfortable And I turned around and I started to walk down, because by then I was starting to really feel sick. I wanted to vomit, and I really felt like I was on this strong detox, but still I didn't get it. I just thought, maybe it's the elevation or something like that. Then the two very interesting things happened to my friend Debbie, who went with me, and to Fran, who walked the same path a week ago, just to walk it out before we did it. Is Debbie went into the cave. She didn't feel any revulsion, or she didn't feel like any walls were there. She went into the cave. She had a look around, and she turned around and she came out. On the outside was another friend. Riette was standing there, and Riette asked, "We need to go down. It's time. We need to be at the bottom at a certain time." And then Debbie said, "No, there's lots of time." She looked at the watch, and it was 15 minutes were just gone. She literally walked into the cave, she walked out, and then 15 minutes were gone. And then she thought maybe her watch was just broken. We came down the mountain and we told Fran about it, and Fran went white, and she said the same thing happened to her a week before. She lost time there. So you hear about all these conspiracy theories of people losing time. Well, it happened to two people there on the mountain. They lost 15 minutes. It was, when I came down, I was totally disoriented. I lost my path. This forest started to look like, I don't know if you are a Lord of the Ring fan, like Fangorn Forest, this dark, and you can see the tree trunks with it started to look like this, and the trees were moving, and I was not feeling well, and it became darker and darker and darker. And I came down the mountain, and then I was actually quite sick for the rest of the day and part of the next day as well. And so each of our 10 participants had their own story, had their own experience. Something happened there. My son, of course, went with. He says, "Yeah, you know what? We are reading too much in it. It's a spaceship that came down and landed there, and the rocket is still buried there in the mountain." There are some ley lines meeting there, but it was definitely something supernatural that we experienced there. And then this is now afterwards, because at the time then it's just too much and you're trying to incorporate it. And the next day we had to move on to the next village again. So after the fact, when I came home and I was trying to make sense of this all, I was reading, and it looks like the goddess that is worshipped there is called Tara, Tara, who is actually a goddess more in the Buddhist tradition. So Tara is either seen as the original mother of Buddha, or sometimes she's seen as the consort of Buddha, the first Buddha. She also crops up in the Irish religion. There's a Tara, it's an Irish Tara as well. She also crops up in the old Latin. She's called Terra, which is terra firma, Mother Earth. She crops up there. She also crops up, I think, in the Middle Eastern religions as Ishtar, Tara, because Tara means star. So it's that star woman, or women star, or women from the stars thing that keeps up. And I think I encountered her. And it was like the fiery side, like the powerful side of women. And it just made me realize that, there was a time. I believe I follow a lot of reading. So there's a mystic a couple of years ago, Rudolf Steiner, and he believed that there was a time when the feminine divine was worshipped instead of the masculine divine, like we are now, but that it got out of balance as well. You think of the old, like in ancient archaeologies, normally goddesses are the first figurines, and goddesses with these big pendulous breasts and buttocks, because they, the fertility goddesses. And then their power was abused, and something happened, and then we swung to the other side with the patriarchy, where we are now, and then maybe things are shifting down to the center. But I'm deviating from Nepal. But that is that. So this is all that came up for me. And it was great to have a detox on the mountain there, because what I wanted to do is to, my crab behind is exactly what happened. And
and it's amazing also how kind of like when we can step into it, when we can just be in the space and we can accept it for what it is and how we understand it and relate to it, instead of putting a label on it and, you know, thinking this, you know, needs to be in this way. It needs to be a happy kind of, you know, feminine kind of like dancey, whatever kind of experience, but actually being like, okay, what is it really? What is it really for me? And how is it making me feel? And like you were saying, you know, you, as you were walking, you were feeling more and more like you wanted to get rid of your shit. Like that's what was the truth. That is what wanted to come out. Like it's, and not thinking that, you're not trying to like hold it back, but actually stepping into that. And I find when we do that, then it's so much more empowering because we're actually listening to within and we're supported by our surroundings, which is wanting us to go into that depth journey. Because as soon as we go into a little bit of a depth journey, we learn deeper stuff about ourselves. And it's not like it needs to be hard or terrible. But it then also pivots us so that we can go up again and go into that growth journey and learn more and more about ourselves. So kind of like with the, and we don't necessarily need to do it all at the same time, in the sense like understand what's happening right when we happen. Often we process things when we get home at a later stage. So for you, is that kind of like what happened, to kind of like having a little bit of this experience of where there are these deeper, darker feelings, and it's a little bit more, a little stronger, and then kind of like, where did you grow from there? Like, what did you experience from that?
It's about the balance of power. I think, you know, as and I think we've had this conversation before as well. In that, as healers or as yoga teachers, we tend to give a lot, and that's our choice in life, to give a lot. Nina, I'm sorry, but I know that we live, but I just want to ask you, our workmen has started and they're banging away. I'm not quite sure if it's disturbing the sound quality of the video.
It's okay, you can carry on. All good.
Okay.
I think we're all like dying to hear what your experience was now.
I've just lost my train of thought. Okay, it's about balance. It's about power. It's about powers, and we give so much. And I think for me, I'm going to really question. You know, what is it that why is it that I want to give so much? Is it because I would really have this longing to give, which is, I think, a part of it. I love to give. Is it also maybe I want people to like me, so I give more than I take?
How true is that for so many of us, that we give because we want to be liked?
So I'd rather just take this second and I'll give more than I get, because then she likes me, or then he likes me more. And, you know, so that's not true power. So I think for this year, after meeting Tara on the mountain there, and I think we all have a little bit of Tara's inside of us, let's then come out and let us find the balance about the authentic giving and receiving, because oftentimes givers as well, there's a challenge to receive, because then I have to show that I'm actually vulnerable enough that I can receive. I'm allowing myself to be open to receive. So I'd rather close and not receive anything, because I can, you know, I'm the giver. You know, it's almost like a power thing. I'm the one that gives. It's like a power thing. And you are the one that receives. You are less than me. So, and learning to shift that. So I think those are the two.
If that takes us all the way around to like the beginning of our conversation, where you noticed that there weren't that many beggars in Nepal. And I wonder if that's got something to do with this deeper understanding that to give, you're actually disempowering someone. So maybe there's not like, maybe there's like a giving of like an unconditional giving, like, you know, looking after an animal and taking care of it because it doesn't know how or when, but not this kind of like, if you're capable, if you're human, if you've got two hands, you've got a brain that works and you can work, Here's kind of like a plot of land, here's a house, do with it as you please, make it work for you. Like, I don't know.
Absolutely. You are very right. I actually didn't even think of that, but it makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Yeah, it just makes so much sense. That victimhood, and that power of giving, that ego trip of giving, is it's really an ego trip. So that is what I'm going to try and ascertain to for the coming year.
Good. So that's I think we can all probably do that in 2023, really focus on the balance between give and receive. And are we giving in a sense where it's disempowering someone? And can we give in a way that is more empowering to them and to us as well? Wow, our conversation went nice and deep, Ronel.
It certainly did. It always does, when two people, I'm in great company, that's why.
Exactly. I love it. And I love it. Absolutely love it. Ronel, it has been fantastic having you on our little show, our little, I don't know, recording YouTube channel. Thank you so much for coming on board. And I think we're going to probably have to pick up this conversation again at some point, because I think there are going to be a lot of people who are going to want a bit more insight.
Great. Thank you very much for giving me the platform to share. It's been awesome.
Absolutely lovely.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.